Welcome back. So now you know a bit about XUnit and about facts. You also know a little bit about how you can actually write good explanatory names right here so other people can understand what the test is about. But how do we use this? Well, the idea is pretty much that we write production code, and that production code will always have a result, an expected result, right? So we kind of want to test that we have an expectation of a result and what is the actual result. So this is what we can test. So let's just take a very simple example right here and talk about assert. First of all, let's say we had a character a variable a that's 1, and we had a variable b that's a plus 1, right? A very, very simple scenario. So we have a and we have b. What do you think b should be? Now, if this was a method, I would like b, okay, 1 plus 1, b should probably be 2. But I can actually be a lot more precise by trying to make an assert right here and say that I expect that I can use the equal right here. There are other ones we'll get into. I say that I expect that 2 should equal b. But I can be more precise actually. If you read the text, it says expected value, comma, actual value, right? So I say I expect that 2 should be the same value as b. And now I can run the unit test. So let's run the unit test. What happens is I right click, run unit test, and you can actually see the test was just run down here with a success. Sweet, that worked. Let's just try and do something else. Now somebody decides that a is actually 2, right? Somebody decides that, and let's just try and run it again. Right click, run unit test. There's also run all down here. If you want to kind of keep it open, you can press run all. Now notice I get an exception. I get the exception down here. It's red. One unit test is not running. And if I kind of expand this, you'll notice that it says, I expected it to be 2, the value b. Let's just scroll down. I expected that value to be 2. Right here, I expected it was 2, but it was actually 3. Something is wrong. Now, this code right here is very easy to read. So none of you would actually expect the code to be 2. You would expect it to be 3, of course. But the cool thing is, normally we don't know this. This might be a method somewhere outside another part of the code that we just need to validate. It also probably is a lot more complex than this, but this is what we can actually do, and this is what we can use assert for. There are other ways to do it. Like there's also an assert to kind of say equals, true, and that pretty much just says I expect that the value you put in here should be true. So in this case, I expect that 2 equals b is true, and of course that should also fail. Let me just try and run it down here with run all tests. And again, you'll see an error. It kind of ran the true scenario down here, and it came up with actual value was false, but you expected it to be true. So there's something wrong in your setup. And of course, if I wanted to kind of make this work, I had to either change the unit test because somebody changed some production code that made it invalid unit test, or I had to change the production code to get back so that the unit test was running again. And let's see what happens. The unit test runs again. And it's a very, very quick way to get problems visible for developers. So you've got to start using this if you don't already. There's also like false, the other way around, of course. I expect 2 not to be b, if you want to kind of test that one. And there's a lot of other ones. I don't want to run over them all, but you could go like, there's also a null test that pretty much just says, I expect this value to be null right now. So let's say we had a variable, let's make it a string right here actually. String name equals null because I haven't initialized it yet. Then I can assert that at this point in time, I expect that name to be null. Let me just try and run it. And hopefully that'll work. Still valid. And let's say that at some point in my code right here, for instance, I actually initialize that value to be Lars, like this. And then I test it. Hopefully the code will now fail and say, uh-oh, it's not null anymore, so you have a problem. And again, you can see over here very precisely, I expected it to be null, but I actually got back last. So that's what it's all about. That's unit testing. Now we are of course going to start using this in a bit more complex scenarios, like with exceptions and crazy stuff like that. But I'm going to show you slowly how we can move from this basic stuff into actually having some real valuable production code unit testing. So now you have an idea about the assert and how you can use it. Next lesson, let's actually try to start building our real service test. See you next time. Bye bye.